Good afternoon, Flagler County. This is Crystal DeWin with the Flagler County Buzz, and we are sitting here with Jeffery Seib, who is one of the many people running for City Council. You are running for
District 1.
District 1 seat, which everybody can vote for that. It's
Yes.
not just...
The district is that you live in the
Yes.
district, so they have one representative from
all the
entire
different areas.
city.
Yes. But it's up for everyone to
Yes.
vote for, so I always want to make sure I
It's good to
throw
know.
that out
People ask me that quite often. Oh, I can't vote for you. I say, no, you can. You can.
All right, so I want to start out with a few background questions a little
Okay.
bit. So, if you're elected, what kind of experience do you feel you'll bring to the Palm Coast City Council, like as far as your background, work experience, anything you've volunteered for or been involved in?
Well, I have been involved in quite a few items with the city. I first became associated with the city in 1978 when my parents retired here. It wasn't a city yet. And I moved here with my wife and family in 1995. The county ran Palm Coast at that time, and they established what they called a Palm Coast Service District Advisory Council. It was made of Palm Coast residents. So I was attending those meetings, and in 1997 an opening occurred, so I applied for and I was accepted onto the Advisory Council. And many of the regulations and many of the rules that are in place now were established by our Advisory Council, and when the city incorporated in 1999, it just brought them forward as city regulations because they were already in place. So we did a lot for it. I was the environmental, my background, I have undergraduate and graduate degrees, and I have worked for 8 years in business and management, and then 25 years in teaching, research, and managing critical infrastructure at University of Florida's Cancer and Genetic Research Institute. So I was made the environmental chairperson of the Palm Coast Service District Advisory Council, and I solved a wastewater management problem in Seminole Woods at that time. In 2014, I joined the Palm Coast Beautification and Environmental Advisory Committee, and I served 8 years on that committee, 2 4-year terms, the second term as a committee chairperson. Our committee first alerted the city to the saltwater canal silting problem. The city wasn't interested in doing anything at that time. I also had I worked to have the monarch butterfly, the city designated as a monarch butterfly city. My father was a totally disabled veteran from World War II. And my father and my mother in the Ladies Auxiliary established the first Palm Coast Disabled American Veterans chapter. And so before our beautification committee, a veterans group came and they wanted to put up a monument at Heroes Park, and I worked very hard on the design and placement of the Veterans PTSD monument. That's right down the street from here at Heroes Park. Those are some of the accomplishments on the. We also had an electric vehicle show with collaboration with Flagler Palm Coast High School students. We're very much involved in that. They're looking at that, and that's the future. And so I worked with them on that. After leaving the committee with the 2 terms in 2022, I have attended city council meetings, researched and spoken out on the issues over 50 times. I spoke on the taxes situation quite often. That recently was finished. I spoke on the state appropriations process and how the Loop Road got put to the top of the list over some of our needs, like stormwater, which we see right now, and the wastewater treatment plant that is having problems right now, wastewater treatment plant 1. I was wondering whose job was this? Who did this? Another item I spoke on was the Airbnb issue, with the problems with people complaining about Airbnbs. The quality of life with our rate of growth, the infrastructure and roads, many of the items. So I feel that with my research background and my city experience, those are my qualifications for the city government.
Okay. And you kind of already answered the next question, which was where did the desire to run for city council come from?
Well, it came from my wanting to have more of an impact on the community than uh, what I did in the committees, because in both the Palm Coast Service District Advisory Council, we went with our proposals to the county commissioners. On the beautification, we went with our proposal through the city government. I spoke to the city government on the planning board. I addressed the planning board. That was the procedure we had to follow when I was on the beautification committee, on a program to provide apartment complexes a tax credit for installing electric vehicle charging stations. It would be a positive for them, and it would be a positive electric people that own the electric vehicles. They can't throw a electric cord out their second story window. So it was my philosophy is win-win, and I thought that was a win-win. The planning board was ready to go. They were ready to vote for it. The city staff was doing this. Oh, well, wait, we gotta consider this a little more. We've got to deal with it some more in the staff issues. And that's where it ended. It was dropped. So that's one of my interests. And my other interest is that I see as we're going forward, the direction that we take now is very important for how the city is going to look in 10, 20 years, wherever, for the future, for your kids, for all the young people. And my philosophy is what I call beautiful and livable. That's my platform for the city. That's what I want our city to be, a beautiful city, because all great cities integrate nature into the city environment. And by nature, I mean trees and open and green spaces and sidewalks and all the amenities that, in addition, this is what the talent that we want to bring in here for economic development, that's what they look for in a community. They want a beautiful community. And a livable community, I mean, that we have infrastructure, we have housing, we have jobs for our young people, we have education, we have entertainment and recreation options for all ages. That's my platform. So that's why.
Okay. Since you touched on it a few times,
yes.
I want to jump in and talk a little bit about Palm Coast and the small business community.
Yes.
There are a lot of small businesses that truly don't feel Palm Coast is business friendly, or that they're not small business friendly. Whether that's the codes that say you can't have a car with any decals or business info in your driveway, to the red tape to open up a brick and mortar. Where do you stand on that, and how do you plan to help the small business community flourish a little bit more here in Palm Coast?
Well, this is a subject that is on everybody's mind right now, and many of the candidates have spoken on this, I'm sure, and we've talked about economic development as being very important. For one big reason is for homeowners is that the tax base is so heavily weighted towards homes that we need to expand. Communities that have a balance have much more than a less than 10% property taxes being paid by business. Right now, that's what it is here. The homeowners pay over 90% of the ad valorem taxes. Business community pay less. So the more we can bring in business, the more we will start to even out that tax base. And I think that I know about that. I know specifically what you're talking about the permitting process. I can't believe it. A friend of mine, his adult daughter, he's my age, so he has an adult daughter. She is opening a business right now in City Marketplace. Mm-hmm. It has taken her, with all the city red tape, 2 years of paying rent on a facility there to get to open up, which is right now she's opening it up. This is ridiculous. She had to do some alterations. There was like just sheetrock cubicles setting off into the area into cubicles, and it had to be done by certain people at a certain time, and it was just so much red tape. She was fortunate in that she had the financial ability to maintain this for that long a time with no revenue coming in. What small business can do that? So I think that's one way we can be very much more friendly is the permitting process. But also there's going to be a climate. This city council that I see coming in, everybody that I have been at the forums with them and spoken with the candidates, I know them all. We're good on business. We're positive on business. Small business is the backbone of any economy, of any city. That's what you hear all the time. So what are we doing? We've got to be able to back that up with actions. And I think that's one thing. And I think we can do it. I'm pretty sure we can do it. I'm a big fan of the tax incentive to help out businesses because, as I just said, the homeowners pay over 90%. So we're getting less than this small amount from businesses. We give a business a tax incentive for a period of time. 50% tax incentive, 50% property tax incentive for 5 years. They're paying 50%. So that's right away, that's more than something. And they're providing jobs. And these jobs, the people that get their paycheck every Friday, they don't go to Alachua County and spend that. That's where Gainesville was. They may spend it at some in Volusia or St. John's, but most of it they spend right here. So it's a win for everybody. So this is why I'm positive on small business and all business, because this is what we've got to do as we go forward.
Okay. Since business kind of ties in with the taxes, yes. I figured I'd bring up the budget.
Very good.
It's always a hot topic every September and early October.
That's right. It was this year also.
I know they also just had the presentation on the forensic audit.
Yes.
And after hearing that presentation,
yes,
do you still feel that there is a forensic audit need? Or do you feel there are other avenues that should be taken before we go down that route?
Well, I researched the forensic audit, and a forensic audit is a criminal audit. It doesn't look for, if there was, not saying there is, incompetence, mistakes made. They're not criminal actions. A mistake is not a criminal act. Mm-hmm. A mistake is a mistake that somebody makes. Incompetence of employees, that's not criminal. A criminal act is something that breaks the law. And this is what a forensic audit will look into. So I'm a little leery of the forensic audit, mainly because it's so expensive. And what are we going to show? Now, I was at the presentation by the auditing firm, the forensic firm. Mm-hmm. And they talked easily of $500,000 for a full forensic audit to ... They didn't, it's an open-ended thing if you go forward. They gave some things we can do instead of that, like a risk assessment, something like that. But I don't think that would satisfy the main person that was speaking of the forensic audit. The books get looked at every year by an auditing firm. We have the J. Moore, I believe it is, from Ormond, do our city audit every year. This year they came back and said the books are perfect. So to find criminal activities, you're going to have to look very deep into what's going on. What happened in the past? What purpose would that show unless there was some kind of egregious, huge amount of loss for the city that can't be accounted for? You'd have to say millions of dollars. Why would we want to go over what happened in past administrations? And so this is one thing that I'm concerned about with a forensic audit. Like I said, I attended the presentation by the accounting firms also. I've been to a lot of the city council meetings, and they said that everything was in order. I also attended all the budget meetings this year for the city's budget. The accountants that are on the city staff, I think they do a good job. I see everything lined up. Every department head came in there and gave a rundown. Parks and Rec, Stormwater, every department, the city staff, the whole 9 yards, they came in and they gave a rundown of every penny that they would like for the new year. At the half-year mark last year, they presented a half-year report, and I was at that meeting also. And they had everything all lined up. Now, I don't think they're going to be fudging the books to the extent that it would require a $1 million expenditure to find a. You can't lose millions of dollars. It's accounted for in the city budget. So I'm a little opposed to a forensic audit at this time. I haven't been convinced yet, I guess I would say, that a forensic audit is needed. But if I spoke to the one gentleman has been bringing up the forensic audit regularly at the city council meetings. I spoke to him several times outside of the meetings. I saw him one time at European Village at another candidate's get together, and I talked for a while. And I wanted to speak with him. I whispered to him on an aside, if you know something, if you have some inside information, let's hear it. He didn't have inside, or at least he didn't want to give me any inside information. So that's where I stand on forensic audit.
Okay. Since we're talking about things like that.
Okay.
Recently, I'm sure you were at the meeting for that one as well. Early September, I think it was September 3rd during the evening meeting. At the very tail end of that meeting, Pontieri brought up the DRIs for the westward expansion.
Yes.
Hearing all of that and knowing that this landowner was supposed to be paying for infrastructure that we are currently looking at financing ourselves as a city, or that we've gotten state appropriations for.
Yes.
What is your take on that? How do you plan to work, if you're elected, how do you plan to work to rectify that with her?
Well, I am very happy that Councilwoman Pontieri is on the city council. She knows how to dig, and she, as an attorney, she can read very fast, which you got to be able to do. Those law books, they're like this thick, and one law is like 150 pages, and it says, I would say little to nothing, but she knows better than I on the law. But this was one thing that really shocked the heck out of me, was that this was what I had spoken to. My concern when I went to the city council in speaking of the state appropriation, that we got over $100 million for this loop extension road, and the YMCA was canceled, was vetoed, and the stormwater treatment work, just like we need right now, vetoed, and the wastewater treatment plant improvements that we see as a $200 million price tag was vetoed. I said, what is going on? Why? I asked the city council, who put that at the top of the list, that state appropriation? And no one would say who put it at the top of the list. Then, right when this was in the context, the meeting on September 3rd, of the changes to the comprehensive plan, the 2050 comprehensive plan, and the city planning manager is in charge of that, and he's the one who brought it up. They presented, Councilwoman Pontieri had noticed that they made a change in the regulations for the development out there, which would benefit the developer more, allowing them to have more control over the land uses than the city having control over things like wetlands protection, that kind of thing, which is something near and dear to me, because my background is in environmentalism. And then Councilwoman Pontieri pulled out the 250 pages and said I took the time over the weekend to read these all. And in the 250 pages, the owners of the property out there, the Rainier Lumber Company, who have a development order called Neoga Lakes, that's the name of the giant development, was supposed to pay for the road to be built, not the city of Palm Coast.
As well as the Junior Olympic pool.
Pool, parks, so many amenities that these are the things that we need for the city. They had agreed to do that. Now, I had talked to the city council when the development that was in an area of it was unincorporated Flagler County, next to the Polos development in Flagler Beach, was being annexed into the city of Palm Coast. Mm-hmm. And the residents of the Polos were very upset about this. Not being residents of Palm Coast, they still can attend the meeting, and they addressed the council. And they talked about, that we have one home per 5 acres. That's the size of the homes. It's an equestrian community. And you're talking about regular city designation of lots, which is 4 homes per acre. So the city, there's a regulation in the comprehensive plan and the land development codes that states any development must be compatible with already existing developments. I was like tongue-tied or speechless, rarity for me, to that they said that for 20 homes on 5 acres is compatible with 1 home on 5 acres. I said, what are you talking about? So those are some of the things that are very concerning to me. But what it was is they had a over 20-year-old development order. That's what Neoga Lakes has. Mm-hmm. That development order was written maybe 25 years ago. We've changed a lot in 25 years. This community has changed so great you wouldn't know 25 years ago what it was like. Mm-hmm. What are we going by these 25-year-old development order? Sure, they have a development order. Let them come in and say what they want now with what they want to do with the community now, and we will make our suggestions also, the city staff and the city council and a city manager all working together.
Okay. So knowing that there were these DRIs and MPDs on file that were not being followed, especially out in the westward expansion, does that bring any concern into some of the other DRIs and MPDs that the city may be in contract with? Does that bring any concern to you? Is that something that if you're elected you would have staff reviewing to make sure that other developers are not failing to do the infrastructure work that they promised in their contracts?
Of course. And even more so, we would have to have the city staff alert the council, because Councilwoman Pontieri shouldn't have to be reading 251 pages of that development order. Somebody in our staff, we have a planning department that is high-paid city employees. That's their job. They should be letting us know that. They can't just forget that or let that skip by. I would never do that. I would demand that they give us that information. And that's one thing that now that, as the saying goes, the cat is out of the bag, I will demand that we get the development order and they review it. And I want them to do that. That's their job. We're not supposed to do it. So they're going to do it. And we will have a city manager that ensures that they do. That's their job. That's what they're evaluated on. I want to know. This slipped by, and almost slipped by. Didn't slip by, almost. But the whole thing, and I was concerned right from the start about this new comprehensive plan. Why are they rushing the new comprehensive plan? We have the comprehensive plan that's in place right now. See, the comprehensive plan is supposedly the guidebook, the blueprint for our city. It's the vision for the city. It then determines what they have a land development codes. The land development codes are the actual regulations that developers and everyone has to follow. The comprehensive plan determines what the land development code states. I don't know why they were rushing. We have the plan that's in place right now is the 2035 comprehensive plan. This is 2024. We're in no rush to make a 2050 comprehensive plan. We can take our time with it. And I said I was so concerned right from the start that something like this was going to happen because of just my knowledge of the way that some of these things have been done, that they've made great allowances. It may have been needed at one time because the city wanted to bring in business, and we were a small little town, and nobody wanted to come in. No BJs would come in. It was too small. The market was too small. Mm-hmm. Now it's changed. All that has changed. Since the pandemic especially, we have just skyrocketed in business. You know, I would always tell folks about the city marketplace. If you know where that is, that's that U-shaped building that sat there for years. The city hall, before the city hall is now, was located in the city marketplace. I would go there. It was empty. The place was totally empty all day long. There was no businesses there, just glass, just windows and doors. Few, like Dominic's Deli. Few, Arthur Murray Dance Studio. They've been there for a long time. Few businesses. Pandemic, it was even worse. Then my gym is over there, Empower Fitness. So I'd come out of the gym and I'd go, this place is deserted. All of a sudden, I go out of the gym now. The parking lot is full. Every glass window has now got a sign on it. The place is thriving. And that's small businesses. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the things that we have to do. But that's what I'll be looking at as a city councilman.
Okay. You brought up working together with a city manager. So,
yes.
As we all know, that our current city manager is only an acting or an interim city manager.
Right. We know when the city manager was fired.
Denise Bevan was let go.
I was at that meeting.
Without very much notice to anybody. It appeared not even her.
So did the other council members.
Do you feel that Denise Bevans was failing at her job enough to warrant that dismissal?
No, I don't. I like Denise Bevans. I've known her for many years. She was involved with the beautification committee. And so I thought she was doing a good job, but then again, as I look now to what we are hoping to get in a city manager, I don't know if she had the skill set for that, actually, as her background was more in city government workings, not so much as a city manager. And so I think that I didn't like the idea that it was such a abrupt event. You know, that's not the way I would have done things. I've spoken to people about that, and you know, what I would have done is I would have given Denise a chance, Miss Bivens, because large corporations I've worked for, like Bell Telephone, the Bell system, which, well, I guess it was in existence at one time. Maybe you remember it in younger years. Maybe folks do. I worked for them, and I worked for Weyerhaeuser, paper company, Lumber Weyerhaeuser Corporation, they call themselves now. It's a nationwide, worldwide endeavor. Anyway, they have different policies in management and in personnel dealings. If you're doing something they don't like, you bring the person in and you tell them what they're doing that you don't want to have, and then you tell them, come back in 2 weeks with a report of how you're going to change things to do what we want you to do as city manager. That's what I would have done. I would have given her a chance to giving a report, say, come back in a month, come back in 3 weeks. Give us a report of how you're going to do things the way we want to go forward. But that's not what they did.
So,
but we need a new city manager.
There is an active process ongoing looking for candidates for city manager. So if you're elected, what are some of the qualities that you're going to be looking for in a city manager for a city of this size that is continuously growing?
Well, I have a big, long list of qualities. I think my city manager candidate must have a academic training in planning, city planning methodologies. My city manager candidate must have some work experience in a situation comparable to what they're wanting to come into. My city manager candidate must be able to troubleshoot, must have excellent communication skills, must adhere to the highest level of professionalism in dealing with residents, the council, and staff, and the public. But also the city manager candidate must have a talent skill set of economic development to attract talent into our community. So that's a big, long list, but I think we can find someone who will fill the bill.
All right. Some of my last questions are on some of the infrastructure issues that we're facing. So let's start with traffic.
Okay.
That is always one of the biggest concerns I see here in Palm Coast. So if you're elected, what are some of the plans that you plan to put into place to help combat the traffic issues that we have?
Well, we need infrastructure work on our roads right now, big time. Meaning we need to understand the traffic patterns and do our road widening, because we can't be thinking right now. We've got to be thinking down the road what it's going to be like. That hasn't been done. I mean, State Road 100 is a great example of that. I'm on State Road 100 now, and they're paving over the 2 lanes. I'm thinking, you've got the people there right now. Put in a 3rd lane. The place is stop and go. And now that this BJ's has opened up, you can't go from 95 to like City Hall in less than hitting traffic jams all along the way. You stop at Seminole Woods, you look down the road, there's nothing but cars wanting to turn on. So it's the traffic congestion. We have to ease the traffic congestion. We have to work on the traffic lights. We have to work on alternative traffic pathways like Old Kings Road and all. One of the items that is brought up all the time is Florida Park Drive traffic. There's certain individuals that are very concerned about that, and rightly so. My parents lived on Florida Park Drive. They moved here in 1978 on Florida Park Drive. They were 3/4 of the way down. There were no houses around their home. It was all open, no homes built yet. We could walk on Florida Park Drive at night and no cars would even come down that far. You don't do that now. You drive on it. So they have in the works this traffic calming, to slow down folks from driving real fast. Another thing is some of the streets in the city that have become so overloaded with traffic that people can't walk on the streets. I know in my neighborhood, Bird of Paradise is one of those streets. Cimarron is a street you hear about all the time. So I would, and the talent that would want to come into a community for economic development, they want these amenities like sidewalks and bike lanes and open green areas and parks and recreation things. So this would be a double win if we get the infrastructure in order. Another item of infrastructure, real important to me, is our water
That
system.
was actually my next question, was the water. Obviously, you touched on the fact that wastewater plant number 1 is in some very serious needs for an overhaul. We have 3 water treatment plants. We have 2 wastewater plants. So there is a very, very sudden need for a 3rd wastewater plant in Palm Coast. They've already increased the impact fees for utilities this year, and I believe they did it to the maximum that they were allowed to per state law.
Yes.
So how do you plan to balance all of these needs with the budget and not having it being saddled with to the residents?
Well, that's a good question, and that's and that's we will have to do that. I think we have to make sure that everything is in place before more people pack in. There was a report by the Census Bureau that said our city will grow by 6,000 people this next year. Now, 6,000 people, that's like 200 a month. That's like almost 20 a day. That seems to be an excessive rate of growth. So I think we need to be very careful with where we're going here for these very reasons. In the planning process for developments that come in, they apply with the city for a planning permit to go ahead with their development. The city staff reviews that. It goes before the city council. The city council looks at this report. First, it goes to the planning board, and they approve it. They approve it because they've never not approved a request that comes for them from the city. So they approve it. Then it goes to the city. In that, the city staff states the impact of this development, of the people in this development, of the cars in this development, the impact on the roads, the people's impacts on the water supply, the people's impact on our infrastructure. Oh, no problem. On our schools. No problem, no problem, no problem. Everything is no impact. Everything's fine. And we reckon the bottom of the line is if we recommend approval, boom, it's approved. Well, and now here we are in this situation. We have to find out what we're going to do. If you were going to ask about the saltwater canals, it's the same thing. That may require 10 to 20 million, maybe more, to dredge those canals. Who's going to pay for that? I mean, at this time, our representative for the state legislature, Paul Renner, will not be the representative any longer. So there'll be somebody else there, maybe the representative from Pasco County or some other county of that nature. So they'll be looking out for their interests first, and all ours. But our state appropriations, it would have been nice to get some money for the waste management issue from the state. This is something that we're going to have to look into with the impact fees, with user fees. I will have to do it. So we have to hope that we keep having the valuation of the homes continue to increase. So even though we keep a low millage rate, it's also based on the valuation. But one of my concerns in that is the water supply itself. Because, before we had this season of constant rains, it was very dry for a period of time. And at that time, the city announced that they had to shift from some of their water wells to other wells out on the western part, because the more eastern wells essentially could not be utilized anymore. The St. Johns River Water Management District at that time declared that many of our wells in that area are in danger of having saltwater intrusion because of sea level rise, and also we're draining everything out, and then saltwater seeps in. And our water treatment plants are not water desalination plants. They treat fresh water, not salt water. Yeah. So these are the things that we will look into. But, as I said on my statement of beautiful and livable, when I say that, I mean that our city can grow with beauty and grace and dignity, not sprawl. And that it's important for us to meet and work, solve our problems as they arise, which they will and which we should do, not put them off for any future residents or city council members.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk with me today. It was
You're
great.
Welcome.
It was great sitting here with you.
Very much.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor, X, and YouTube to see more of the political interviews coming up this month.